UFC 314 was one of the biggest pay-per-views of 2025, and it absolutely delivered. Top to bottom, the fights were spectacular. The main card had a couple of upsets and a very what?
You can't start over. This is
I don't know where I was going.
Goes. What are you doing? You cannot start over.
I just start talking.
No, yeah, you just
80% of the time I end up where I'm supposed to end up, and 20% I'm like, what? I just used words that
we're not editing this out. This is the follies of what you do. This is like football follies. I love it.
The topic is.
I'm Angelo. This is Josh Thomson. Here you go. Okay, let's go. This is not. What are we doing here? Let's go. Talk the topics. We want to say what's next for for the main event fighters. We won't talk both sides, but for sure the winners and maybe one or two sprinkled in on the other side. Is that what you're getting at there?
Yeah, main card. UFC 314 was great. Couple of really solid fights. What's next for these fighters? The matchups to make after UFC 314.
Angelo, I just want to say this, man. I really enjoy doing this show with you. It's fun. I'm having a great time, brother. You really are. It's fun. It's fun for me, man. It's like, it's just different. Like to me, it's the energy you bring. I love how you are very critical of yourself. Where you're like, no, we have to redo this. We have to, oh no, I came off wrong. No. This is great. I actually enjoy it, man.
You should see how many takes with my own videos. Once I get going, I'm good. But like, if I can't get past the first two sentences, it's like restart.
Oh,
and then I start wandering on and talking about God knows what. But I got to get past those first two sentences. Really.
Do you know people love watching people humanize themselves? I mean, I think that's why you do your what are the shows you do at your house? The vlogs.
Oh, the vlogs. Yeah.
You're humanizing yourself. I mean, I've been to a couple of them where you're vlogging it, and
I've edited you out of the vlog. Okay. I'm like, I don't want Josh thinking that I'm. So I was like, zoom in and keep Josh out of the background.
I respect that, man. I respect that. That's kind of, it's funny. I was just watching something the other day. Somebody, what was it? I was like a mainstream actor. Oh, so Nipsey Hussle. He was a rapper. He died. He was killed. But they offered him the job to play Snoop Dogg in Straight Outta Compton.
Oh, okay.
And he respectfully declined because Snoop called him and goes, hey, man, it was all jacked up. I just read this story the other day. And Snoop calls him and goes, hey, man, they want you to play me. He's like, man, I'm stoked for this. He's like, hey, man, no disrespect. He's like, but if I play you, then all people will ever think of me is of you. Yeah. He's like, I want to do my own thing. And he's like, damn, that hit hard. So I respect it. I understand. But like, I like that, I like that you left me out of the vlogs. I think that's pretty respectful, man.
I literally told the editor, I'm like, do me a favor. Like, just like, if he's in the background, zoom in, like, don't like make it a topic. So, what is funny is what I didn't appreciate is you and Jacob teaming up against me on Twitter. Didn't love that.
You made it so easy.
Didn't love that.
I didn't know that was him until I actually like clicked on it, and then I saw the face, and I'm like, oh, I can't miss that smile, man. He got the big cheese ball smile, ear to ear. Looks like he caught a fish.
He's got perfect teeth. I make fun of him that they're veneers because it's like those can't be real.
Are they real?
They are real. Well, he gets defense. It's the one thing I can do to piss him off because he was like, I had to wear headgear. You don't know the torture I went through as a kid to have these teeth. So yeah, these are real. You're not
a huge deal, man. That's one of the hardest things I have to do, getting through to my kids. Hey, like you got to take care of your teeth. Like, it's, because kids are like, oh yeah, I brush my teeth. It's literally like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Get it all out. And I'm like, no, we're getting back in there. Yeah. Let's go. All right. Hey, well, let's get into the fight breakdowns, or not fight breakdowns, but the matchups that we're thinking would be best for the winners.
Yeah, well, let's start at the top and work our way down. So obviously Volkanovski beat Diego Lopes.
Yep.
It was an interesting fight. There were a couple of big moments on the Lopes side. I would say he did not fully rise to the occasion. It's one thing to get outclassed if you lay it all out and you're just swinging for the fence trying to make it work. Dean Thomas quite literally had the perfect. He's like, at this point, Diego Lopes needs to stop being technical and just try to rip this dude's head off. And if you gas out, you gas out. So the fallout from that is Volkanovski gets to defend his belt. Obviously, they're not going to run that fight back. That was one-sided enough to not do it over. I'm assuming Evloev is the only guy that makes sense, but the UFC doesn't really like him. He's not very exciting. He's kind of a boring dude. He would not be a fun champion to have. Volkanovski is one of the most loved guys in the sport. But at this point, Evloev has so many wins, it's almost undeniable. Do you think it should be Evloev? And if it's not him, there's really, who's the only other person they can make a case for?
I mean, it sounds like they're going to maybe try to run the Yair thing back after his performance with Pitbull. Outside of that, I mean, Evloev needs. He doesn't need any more wins. I think he should be next. Let's be honest. He should be next. He's getting John Fitched right now, is what he's getting. So the reality of it all is that if the UFC likes you, they're going to push you for the title. He's got to do something on his side, and I don't know what it could be, but he's got to work for finishes. Whoever he fights next, he needs to make sure that he is dominant and he gets the submission or he gets the whatever it is, knockout, whatever it is. He's got to do more work from the top position and get it done. I couldn't tell you, UFC, they have what they want to do. They need him to be marketable in some way, somehow, to sell that title fight. And they're not willing to push it. They know they can sell Yair in Mexico or Guadalajara or wherever, they want to fight. They know that they can sell it in Australia. But it'll be very difficult to sell the Evloev fight and Volk, period. They're just going to be like, oh, man. And if he does win, like you said.
Brutal.
Jeez. They're just thinking we're screwed.
It's brutal. If Aljo beat, and that actually was a fun fight, the Aljo Evloev fight. And if Aljo beat him, you can make the case for Aljo, but he didn't, obviously. You could, if you're in that room and you're Hunter Campbell and you're Dana White, and you're like, dude, under no circumstances can we get Evloev, get this shot. The only two options you might have are undefeated Lerone Murphy. He is undefeated. He's also not wildly exciting, but at least it's not a wet blanket. Or you could, John Silva. We'll talk about him in a minute. He did just have a quality win over a ranked guy. He could leap 6-7 rankings and jump his way up there, but I don't think he's ready. And I also think they would be burning a potential future superstar a little too early in his career. So I think it has to be Evloev, unfortunately.
I think Yair is going to bounce him. I think Yair is going to leapfrog him. He's going to get right there, and he'll be the one next fights for the title.
Well, then let's talk.
Well, I think with Yair, what they did was, he came out and said, like, hey, I get a title shot off of this Pitbull fight. What it was no one wanted to fight Pitbull. Let me give you the backstory on this. Nobody wanted to fight him. So he started reaching out to people and said, hey, are you going to sign the contract? Are you going to fight me? Like they need, for me to get signed, they need to have somebody fight me. None of these guys want to fight guys coming from other organizations because they feel like they have nothing to gain.
Yeah.
The bottom line is when you beat somebody like Pitbull, and I know he's older, he's 38, but what you're doing is, you notice how much respect Yair had for him inside the cage? It's because there's a mutual respect. That guy's done so much. He carried Bellator on his back. It used to be Lima, but then now it's not. Like, it was literally like that portion was shared between Lima and Pitbull ended up carrying it on his back. And other guys came in, but it was him. So I think a lot of guys had a lot of mutual respect for him. A lot of those guys would have left Bellator, and he didn't. He stayed and he stuck it out, and he tried to piggyback that thing on his back, and he carried the promotion for a long time. I got nothing but respect for Patricio, man. He is a stud. He's a great person, a family man. Love for his brother and what he did to Michael Chandler, I'll never forget. And I love that.
He beat the piss out of prime Michael Chandler.
Yeah. Yep.
Not this version of Michael Chandler, the original Michael Chandler.
Yeah. Chandler was the champion at the time. Chandler, there was a lot of talk. I mean, he knocked out Patricio, his brother, in highlight reel fashion, and they got into it. And, literally like a year later, the two of them were matched up and ready to fight. And Patricio touched him up. Everyone's like, oh, it was early stoppage. No. You can knock somebody out and then knock them back into consciousness. It doesn't mean that it should have been stopped.
Diego Lopes did that to Brian Ortega 2 fights ago. Knocked him clean out and then woke him back up with I think it was a left hook. I mean, you talked about, so we'll bounce around a little bit here. You talked about Patricio Pitbull. His next matchup is an interesting one because he definitely is a little older in his career. I do think if he won that fight and if he did it well, the UFC might have rushed him to a title shot. Champ versus champ.
Yeah, they would have done that over Evloev. 100%.
For sure.
They would have said, you're 38. Let's just see what happens. You and Volk are both the same height, like 5'2".
Yeah, he's small. Yeah.
Yeah. So, he's not a big 55 or 45 pounder. He literally just fought at 35, didn't have a good showing because the guys were too fast for him. Just the weight cut, I think, killed him as well. He went back up to 45 and, we're going to see what he can do. But I think the fights to make with him, honestly, is you put it maybe a Dan Ige or Calvin Kattar because you want to bring him in. Look, he lost to Yair, which is, I said this from the beginning, that was the toughest
fight in the world.
Yeah, that was the toughest fight you could have given him because he moves so much and he's so quick with the feet and he's just so So it
He's
was gonna
huge.
make Patricio is gonna make him very hesitant to throw his shots. He's got to pick and choose his shots, and that's very difficult for someone who's 38 years old. I would have liked to have seen him come in to the organization with somebody that you knew was going to potentially stand with him. Him and a Brian Ortega fight. I know Brian's huge. That would have been a fantastic fight, but Brian going up to 55, that kind of got rid of that. I would have loved to have seen him and Max, because those are things that, like, for his first fight in, he has nothing. All he wanted to do was get to the title shot. But now that he's lost, let's talk about reality. Reality is Danny Ige, Calvin Kattar. Those are the two guys I'd love to see him fight. They probably won't give him Zalal because Zalal's so much younger, and they can still build on him, and he's very entertaining. He's a fun fight to watch. Maybe a Josh Emmett fight, two guys that can knock each other out, somewhere in that mix. I don't know if I'd give him the Arnold Allen. I don't know if I'd give him the Lerone Murphy. There's a lot of movement, a lot of, like, you want to get the best out of him for your fans. Give him somebody that's going to stand and trade with him. Josh Emmett, Calvin Kattar, and Danny Ige. Those are the guys.
I think the three of those are perfect. I think those are great matchups. And I actually would, if I'm picking between two, I would say Emmett or Ige. Emmett's a little older, so is Patricio. So between the two of them, just, move one old forward and leave one old where he is, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then
exactly.
Dan Ige is exciting. Everybody he fights, it's always a fun fight. He'll bring it. You don't have to worry about him not engaging. So Dan Ige is also a great matchup. So I think between those two, that would make a lot of sense for Pitbull. Obviously, Pitbull lost to Yair Rodriguez. I actually would not push Yair to the title fight. I think, because Volk beat the shit out of him. Like, that wasn't very close. I think the best matchup for Yair is actually Diego Lopes. They got into it at the press conference, so there's some backstory there. They both can have, they can do it in Mexico, and I believe they're doing a pay-per-view in Mexico in September.
Yeah, Guadalajara. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think so, September. Mexican Independence Day.
I think so this year's Noche. So I think the two of them in Mexico makes a ton of sense. Diego Lopes, will find out how good he is or is not. Obviously, I do think he's very, very good. He fell a little bit short, but giant main event, first 5 rounds, title fight. So let's see what he looks like against Yair, who's a very different matchup, a tricky matchup. I think the two of them make the most sense. So I would match them up, because otherwise, if I'm looking at the rest of these rankings, we have Volk. Max Holloway is still, number 2 in the world right now. Then Diego Lopes. We have Evloev, Yair, Brian Ortega, Arnold Allen. A lot of these guys have already fought each other. That is a brand new, fresh matchup at 145 pounds. It makes a lot of sense. I would put those two together.
Yeah, like, I'm going to jump back into Patrici. What I was thinking was, I think the potential of him and the fight that I hope they put together that we didn't talk about was Jose Aldo. 145 pounds in Brazil, main event. Like, it just makes sense. That it's, Aldo being the former 45-pound, basically the GOAT at 145. And you put him, I look at that fight. That's a fight that I feel like it has to happen. The two of them were a little bit chirpy with each other back in the day, and they had nothing but respect for each other. But Patricio was always like, "Hey, I can beat him," and Aldo was always like, "I'm the king of Rio." So it's like, let's find out. So that fight, I feel like, needs to be made. Let's not forget, you got Aaron Pico coming into the weight class. So that's a great addition. But then you also, Max is gone to 55, and Brian Ortega is gone to 55. So those are 2 ranking spots right there that are going to be gone. Ilya Topuria is gone as well. So when I look at this, I would like to see Pitbull fight either Aldo, which to me would be the number 1 fight. I'd put that over Dan Ige, over Calvin Kattar, and over Josh Emmett. I would put that fight, capitalize while you can, have them headline in Brazil, make the money while you can on that fight. That's what I would do. In terms of Diego Lopes or Yair, I think that's a fantastic matchup. Fantastic. But when you do that, that means that Evloev is going to get the title.
Yeah. You kind of screwed yourself in the title fight there. But the problem is, if they don't give Evloev a title shot, it's very hard to defend not giving him a title.
No one's going to care, though. That's the thing. They don't need to defend it. No one's going to care.
It is.
Tell me I'm wrong. Am I wrong?
No, listen.
Okay.
I actually enjoyed the Evloev and Aljamain Sterling fight. I thought that was a fun.
I loved it.
The wrestling was much better than I thought it was going to be. Aljo was shooting beautiful takedowns, and he was just losing the scramble. Like, that was a very good fight, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. And that actually did give me some, you know, like, oh, Evloev can be fun, but he was only fun because Aljo brought the fight to him.
Yep.
So, you know, I agree. Not many people are going to care,
Yeah.
but, you know, it's a little tricky because you're right. You rattled off a couple of names that are out of this weight division. So it's kind of slim pickings.
Yep.
And Aaron Pico, what I hope they don't do is immediately give him a top 5 guy and then, you know, build him up, get him out there, let him beat the shit out of a couple people, build him up, show everybody who he even is instead of just relying on, I promise you he was good somewhere else. And then they give him the worst matchup they can give him and then he loses. And it's like, well, what did we do here?
Yeah. Certain guys, right, that come over. Michael Chandler, he took the money. So when you take the money, you have no choice but to fight those guys. Okay. Patricio, he's 38 years old. What do we do? You got to give him a top 5 guy so we can get him to the title or not give him to the title. Pico's 29 years old. We got time to build him. I would have liked to have seen him fight Evloev his first fight in because he can stuff the takedowns. He can out wrestle him and he can, you know, outbox him. But it would be fun on the grappling portion of it, though, not the wrestling portion. The wrestling portion I have for Pico, the grappling portion I have for Evloev. But Pico's gotten better on the ground as well. But I mean, I just think wrestling wise, straight wrestling, I give it to Pico. Boxing wise, I give it to Pico. But Evloev is a huge 45 pounder. Huge. Pico is not a big 45 pounder. So some good matchups to be made off of that, just off that main event topic. But I agree with you. I think the Yair and Diego Lopes fight with the confrontation at the presser, and then, you know, just the fact that that's marketable. That's a very marketable fight for me.
Yeah, they have built-in footage. They just got their promo going. If we go to the co-main event, we have Paddy Pimblett and Michael Chandler. Paddy looked phenomenal, obviously. You know, what was interesting is I picked Paddy. I bet on Paddy. My logic was I actually think Michael Chandler's the better fighter, but he's at a point, he's not really taking his career very seriously at this point. He's showing up. He's trying to be fun. He's trying to be exciting. He's always going to be in shape, but he's not doing the things he's supposed to do to win, right? He's sitting on right hands trying to make something happen. This fight was different. That's not really how it went down. He tried to win this fight. He was shooting takedowns. He was actually using all of his skills and not just sitting on right hands, and it still didn't work. Paddy looked phenomenal. First of all, massive. I know Michael Chandler's not the tallest guy in the world, but Paddy looked huge. He had a great showing. What'd you say, 5'2"?
5'2".
Yeah.
He's not 5'2", guys. If you guys don't watch weighing in, man, you guys, like, I'm not a big Chandler fan. Him and I have had beef for a while. We were supposed to fight a couple times, and yeah, we just don't like each other. So, well, I'm very upfront about it. I'm very honest and upfront about it. So
it kind of sucks for him because Michael Chandler's stock shot through the roof, and then it has not been a fun 2 years to be Michael Chandler. Almost got a generational payday that fell through. Lost a ton of respect in the fan base because everybody just started talking about, you know, fish hooking and fence grabbing and all that stuff. Then he goes out, gets out wrestled by Charles Oliveira, and now he just lost to Paddy Pimblett. So there's two sides of this fight. There's the Paddy side. Paddy's in an interesting spot because he's at 155. He is building a name for himself. I don't think he's quite good enough to fight for a title. I think he kind of gets smoked by a couple of those people, but you don't want to burn him either. You do want him to continue to win. So you could give him a Justin Gaethje, potentially a Max Holloway as well. Dustin Poirier and Max are probably fighting in Dustin's retirement fight, so they might be off the table. But if we're rounding out that top, Dan Hooker's out for a while. He just fought Michael Chandler. You're not going to give him Gamrot. You could do a Beneil Dariush matchup potentially, but I think Beneil beats Paddy. Renato Moicano, to me, is actually the only one that makes sense. They've got their own little beef going. Renato's called him out a few times. It's a top 10 guy. You know, it's either Justin Gaethje, Renato Moicano, or then you're outside the top 10 for Paddy.
Look, yeah, Chandler, he's going to jump all the way up above Dan Hooker, I believe, because Chandler beat Dan Hooker, and now he just demolished Michael Chandler, so he's going to probably leapfrog Dan Hooker. I would like to see the Dan Hooker and Paddy fight. That fight probably would be number 2 for me. I'm going to throw this one out there, and I know there's possibly no chance whatsoever. Conor McGregor. You have him and Paddy, and then Conor coming out and putting all the money down on Chandler. No, if you can make that fight will do huge numbers. Huge. You do it in Ireland or you do it in the UK. I mean, it just makes sense, man. I know that Conor is not going to fight, but if you could find a way to make that fight happen, that would be the fight to make.
Yeah, Conor McGregor's definitely never fighting again. But I agree. Of all the people Conor could fight, I'd rather watch that than the Chandler matchup.
Oh,
Obviously, the Chandler
absolutely.
that's long gone at this point. Paddy, and actually for the UFC, it'd be very beneficial because I think the UFC is kind of done with Conor at this point too. Like, yeah, if we can get a giant payday out of him, great. But he's not here for the long run. If he comes in and he beats Paddy, great. It is what it is. And if he loses to Paddy, well, you just transferred some
Yeah.
superstar aura over, and then
Yep.
now you had the massive event and you
Yep.
have the highlight of somebody beating him. I do think, Paddy's a guy that's grown on me. When he first came into the UFC and his chin was in the air, he's like looking at the sea. I'm like, this dude's going to get knocked out. And he just keeps winning. They're not the most impressive wins. Obviously, UFC 314 was impressive, but going the distance with Tony Ferguson wasn't the best look. He still has that chin in the air, but he's starting to clean it up. His hands are looking good. The wrestling's looking decent. The grappling's always looked good, but he's funny and he's marketable and he's a good dude. And I do think he has superstar potential. I mean, the walkout, everything about him, like people are starting to really embrace and love, and he's growing on people. I don't want them to blow that up by rushing him. So I do think a matchup that he can win, potentially Benoit Saint Denis, but I
Oof.
don't know what matchup exists right now that he could.
Yeah, I wouldn't go like honestly, I'd go right to the Dan Hooker. He can take some
Well, I think
time.
he's out. His hand is like bad, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he had the surgery, I believe, right? So I mean, whenever that heals up, but he
Yeah.
just fought. So you've got at least 6 months
Yeah.
before he'll fight again.
Yeah.
So they'll probably fight Paddy sometime around October, November. And if that's the case, I mean, I'm sure Dan will be ready to go by then. Dan's a dog, dude. Dan will find ways to get in there and fight. Whatever it is, he's that guy. So the Dan Hooker fight is a fun fight. Two of them are both tall, both big for the weight. The grappling portion of it's not going to be easy to get Dan Hooker down and be able to control him and hold him down. On the feet, I give the advantage to Dan Hooker, especially the way that Dan's so long and he throws straight punches. He likes to get in there and mix it up. He'll take a shot to give a shot. He'll take 2 shots to give 1 shot. But I think to me that's a great fight, man.
Yeah, I mean that would be a good fight for sure. The other side of it is Michael Chandler. Obviously, he's 1-4 in his last 5, or maybe 1-5 in his last 6, something like that. He has only 1 single win in the UFC. 2 wins. An old Tony Ferguson, and he knocked out Dan Hooker in his debut. Since then, he's had wars. He's has exciting fights. He goes out there, he lays on line, but he hasn't gotten those actual wins. And maybe the reality is he's a guy who's not top 5, right? He's in the top 5. He's been fighting top 5 people. Maybe he's a top 20 guy at this point in his career. So if we're looking at fun matchups for Michael Chandler, because I still think there's some life left in there, maybe you do the Moicano fight. Maybe that's Moicano's next fight. Give him Michael Chandler. He can get another win, potentially, earn his status back after losing to Islam on short notice. You can give him Fiziev. That could be a really fun fight. You can give Michael Chandler. I wouldn't do Grant Dawson, and Ignacio Bahamondes is the last guy in this ranking. So I'm thinking potentially Renato Moicano or Rafael Fiziev for Michael
Oh,
Chandler. He's not going to win either one of those fights,
you
but
trying to get this dude killed?
he's not going to win. I don't know who he's going to like. Who
No,
does
he's
Michael
not.
Chandler beat at this point? Like,
He's not. Where we're at right now, and I talked about this on my show to in depth. He is simply at the point in his career where the fight is not left in him anymore. You see him, he wasn't really fighting hands to escape. Look at the Charles Oliveira fight. Charles had his back. There was no sense of urgency to ever get out of there. It was like, let me just get wrist control and survive. That was it. There was no Michael Chandler used to spin inside the figure 4, used to try and do heavy damage from the top position. Right now, he has none of that. I think what you're seeing as well, it doesn't matter how much you love to train, doesn't matter how ripped and shredded you are, those things do not matter. Okay, when you get inside there, if your mental is not on point, you can't win.
yeah.
So for me, he's completely checked out. He's made a lot of money. He's got a beautiful family. Bounce, dude. Just get out. Because honestly, are you going to?
You're saying no matchup? You're
No,
like,
I don't think
done.
so. My honest opinion is that he can't beat Grant Dawson. He may be able to beat him. I don't think so, though.
I don't think so.
Grant Dawson.
Charles Oliveira out wrestled him. Grant Dawson out wrestled him.
And then Bahamondes, why would you do that to Bahamondes? Like, he could knock him out and he could finish him, but he could also, if he did lose, you lost a young and up and coming star. That being said, you also got to look where Michael Chandler's at. Do you want to be a prelim fighter? Because you're 1 fight away from being a prelim fighter. There's no one really to match you up with anymore. There's no one for you to fight. like in that would people that would strike people's interest to have you on the main card. That's it. So for me, the UFC is going like, look, we're paying you $900,000 a year or $900,000 a fight. We need to get the best out of you. Well, what do? We give you guys that will stand and bang with you. Fiziev would freaking murder him.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's not. I thought maybe Beneil Dariush, and that has nothing to do with against Beneil Dariush. He's got salt and pepper hair. He looks like he's 50, but he's not. You know,
He's only like 35 or
yeah,
something,
he's like
right?
30.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing with him though is that he will fight everywhere, and he's a very big bodied frame guy as well. And so I don't think there's a real good matchup for him across any of these fights. None of them. None of them. So if I'm going to pay you $900,000 a fight, who can I put you on? And am I going to make you a prelim fighter for $900,000 a fight? Not a good position to be in. If I was him, I would walk away. The hardest part is you're leaving that amount of money left on your contracts. You're leaving that amount of money on the table. That sucks. That's hard. That's very difficult. I mean, I left quite a bit when I stopped my career, but I just said, hey, I have a long career ahead of me. I had a long career. I don't have it anymore. Like, do I want to take the damage? I don't care if this much money is left on the table. Like, you want to be able to have a conversation and put two words together and just, and it's not, I don't know. It's not there for him right now. And you could see it in the way he fights. He needs to call it a career, man. Enjoy your kids.
I think he could squeeze one more out, and not for his sake, but for the UFC's sake. I think Fiziev, I agree. I think Fiziev runs right through him. I don't even think it's remotely close. But if I'm the UFC, like, all right, I'm going to spend this money, but by spending this money, we're going to get Fiziev back into the win column. We'll build him back up. We'll get a highlight out of him. I'm basically paying to move who could be a pretty marketable guy up another step and getting that win back. So not for Mike. Like if I'm Michael Chandler, I don't know who he's going to beat in the top 15. I don't know if he can beat any of them. So it's more for the other side. Just let's get somebody else a quality win over somebody that, has a decent resume.
Gotcha. All right. And then Yair, I'm thinking that with Yair, you let him bounce. You let him bounce right to the title. I say you skip Evloev and go right to the title shot with Yair.
So you would do Yair for the title instead of Yair versus Diego Lopes.
Yes. Yep. I would do. I mean, like,
just to keep Evloev out of there.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, look, I like I said, I agree with you on the Sterling fight. I thought it was a fantastic fight, but fans don't care.
Yeah.
And when fans don't care, it's hard to, I'm looking at it I'm putting my promoter hat on, and I'm simply saying, like, if fans don't care, what am I going to sell? Maybe you save the Evloev fight experience for whenever they get to Netflix. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I mean, like, because then like, look, people will tune in because it's free.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to pay $80 to watch Evloev and Volk. And Volk, I don't think is going to want to be the co-main event. He's put his work in. He deserves to be the main event. And let's not forget, you get big bonuses for being the main event, not just on top of your pay-per-view numbers, but you get big bonuses.
The only upside for Volk to fight Evloev is Evloev is a pretty good striker, but he's not a one-punch power kind of guy. And with Volk's chin the way it is, it's like it's kind of a safe matchup. If I can defend the takedowns and keep this standing, I don't have to worry about the because listen, Diego Lopes almost had that dude out. He had him right there at the end of the second round, and those moments were few and far between because Diego wasn't letting his hands go. But if Volk fights somebody who does have power and does let their hands go, the chin isn't quite there. He's working through it with just forward pressure and the energy and mixing up takedowns and the striking. Evloev, he won't have to worry about that one punch knockout power. He will have to worry about the takedowns. Then we have the Jean Silva Bryce Mitchell matchup. Obviously, Jean Silva looked absolutely phenomenal in that fight. He looked. His composure was incredible. He didn't seem to care one bit about a takedown coming his way. Obviously, he jumped guillotine twice. First time was stupid to jump guillotine, but he jumped it. It is what it is. The round was sort of closing. It wasn't the most impactful. The second time he jumped it, that actually led to the ninja choke, and that's how he ended up winning by submission. But his striking looked unbelievable. We knew it would be. He was not frozen by the moment. He rose to the occasion. He absolutely delivered. This entire main card had a bunch of featherweight fighters on it, 6 to be exact. If I'm looking back through these featherweight rankings, what do you do with Jean Silva? I I don't think he necessarily should be fighting, and he is going to take Bryce Mitchell's ranking. That's just how that works at 13. But who are you going to match him up against? Do you go down to a Calvin Kattar or a Dan Ige, or do you go up? Give him Josh Emmett, who he, should be able to beat. Do you have him fight Aljo, former world champion? Let's see where he actually is on the list. Maybe undefeated Lerone Murphy. What do you do next for Jean Silva?
For me, the sky's the limit for him. I mean, do you jump him all the way to Diego Lopes and have him fight there and see what happens? I don't think that they will. You don't have him fight Lerone Murphy because Lerone's undefeated. Like, you want to leave him in that position. It's one of those situations. Like, he's at Bryce Mitchell, he'll end up being, say, somewhere in the Zalal thing. Zalal's still young. You want to not mark, you want to keep him active as well. Maybe you have him fight a Giga Chikadze. Maybe you have him fight an Arnold Allen. Those are two guys that will jump him a little bit in the rankings. I have higher expectations for Arnold Allen than Arnold Allen has for himself. I'd like to see Arnold Allen make a run because I know he's got it in him. His fight with who did he fight? Did he fight Sterling or Evloev?
He fought Evloev, and
Evloev.
it was yeah.
And he just didn't believe in himself. He was so worried about the takedown, but he didn't believe in himself. He could have won that fight. I feel like everyone that fights Evloev, man, they fight a very different fight than they normally would. Just concerned of being controlled and taken down, which makes for boring fights. But they can have success against him. So I look at where Jean Silva is going to end up somewhere in that 13-14 range or 13-12 range. Maybe you give him the Arnold Allen fight, just to be honest. Jean Silva, Arnold Allen.
If I'm looking at the rankings, I actually think that fight makes the most sense because Arnold Allen is also a very high-level striker. So we know Jean Silva is a good striker, so that could be a really fun matchup. Arnold Allen is ranked 7th. He's not booked currently. He's coming off the win over Giga Chikadze. Giga's booked. He's fighting in 2 weeks. So obviously the timing aligns. If Giga wins, you can just wait that out and they can fight each other. I actually think Arnold Allen is probably the best possible matchup for Jean Silva. You're going to move him up the rankings a little bit. You're going to test him. You're not going crazy, and you'll find out how good he actually is. And Arnold Allen is also very good. So I think that's a great matchup for Jean Silva. Bryce Mitchell, obviously that wasn't a great showing for him. He moved forward. He tried to win that fight. The game plan was clearly kick his legs out, and the striking didn't look atrocious for Bryce. Honestly, the wrestling looked worse than the striking, in my opinion. I thought Bryce's striking was decent. The problem is the takedowns were from way too far away. They were stuffed a little too easily. The one time he set up a beautiful takedown, he led in. I think he just bombed an overhand. He was in the pocket, shot a beautiful takedown, went for it. Bryce Mitchell's a pretty one-dimensional dude who's adding other pieces. But if I'm looking at these rankings, where does Bryce Mitchell go? He obviously is going to fall down in the rankings. Below him are Calvin Kattar. We keep mentioning Dan Ige. Sean Woodson, also controversial loss. Maybe you do Sean Woodson and Bryce Mitchell and see how that one goes.
Interesting. That does make sense. I wouldn't mind seeing that fight. That's a good fight, I think, for Bryce Mitchell, the Sean Woodson fight. Good fight for them because, Sean Woodson, people are going to remember like, hey, he lost the fight, but it should have been stopped. That's going to be their take on it. And let's see if he can get himself back up or see if he can get himself into the rankings by beating Bryce Mitchell. I look at Bryce, and he created a lot more problems for him going into this fight with comments and words and this and that. But bottom line is, and Dana said this as well, he took it like a man. He confronted it. He didn't run away from it. And he was, very vocal about, hey, I fucked up. I did this, I did that, whatever it was. He was trying to explain himself. But that just puts more pressure on you when you get to the fight. People want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about your fight. So do whatever it takes to get you back on track. I think whatever he's doing in Arkansas, he's going to have to find a camp. He needs to find a real camp because his striking, sure, although has got a little bit better, his wrestling and his jiu-jitsu has not. I mean, he's been submitted now twice. So, I mean, like, it's one of those things where like you're known for being a grappler. Well, and John Silva, to me, I think he looked fantastic. I thought he made it look easier than Ilia Topuria did against Bryce Mitchell. He looked good. Looked fantastic. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with Jean Silva. I think the Arnold Allen fight makes a lot of sense. I do agree with that. The Giga fight, maybe not so much, only because we don't know if Giga's going to win the fight or not. And it could potentially drop him out of the top 15 if it does. Or I don't even know who Giga's fighting. Who's Giga fighting?
I literally just broke it down yesterday. I forget who he's fighting. I just broke it down. I picked against him. Oh, he's fighting David Onama. Good,
Oh,
long,
gotcha.
fast
Yeah,
striker.
yeah.
Yeah, I think he's going to lose that fight, and I think he
Got it.
does drop out of the top 10
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
or top 15.
Yeah, so then you got, you know what I mean. So Geek has been one of those guys. He's not a very active guy, almost like he's just trying to hold on to his ranking. He's got to stay. I don't know if he's been injured or not, but like I haven't seen him fighting. I don't know how long.
It's like once a year. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and so the UFC, when they see that you're not taking fights, they're like, all right, what are we doing? Let's just go ahead and get the guy beat. Who can we match him up against that can beat him? Or at least give him a fight that will do well on TV. You know, and that's it. Bryce, yeah, he's got his hands full though. I think he's gonna have to make a comeback, make a run, but he's got to find a new camp, somewhere he can go that can help shape him and mold him a little bit more.
Yeah, that's the problem with, he found some success. He was doing really well, undefeated for a while. He dropped Edson Barboza in that fight, and he was doing well. He got smoked by Ilya. But okay, Ilya went on to become the champion, Georgian wrestler, power hands, no big deal. The problem is Bryce has not evolved, to your point. He's an Arkansas wrestler. I don't know if you know much about wrestling, but Arkansas isn't exactly known for
They're not
being
on
a
the map.
phenomenal wrestling state. So
They're
it's
not on
like,
the map.
so it's like, listen, at this point, you are ranked in the world. You have only a few years to do something with your career.
Mhm.
I don't think he has kids. Like, go to a big camp and start training with some better people than you
Yep.
and make those improvements, make those adjustments. And maybe he will, right? He hasn't yet. Maybe he will now. I mean, his loss was Ilya, fine. And then that flash knockout, the one punch, big time knockout from Josh Emmett. But now this was a destruction by a
Mhm.
non-champion. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, you need to make some adjustments. The last fight on that main card we'll talk about here. The next matchups for Dominic Reyes, and obviously he just fought Nikita Krylov. Dominic Reyes got that knockout. That's three knockout wins. Sorry, three knockout wins in a row.
Mhm.
Three knockout wins in a row after losing by knockout 3 times in a row. I wouldn't quite say he's back because they're not the greatest wins. And Nikita Krylov one was solid, but he knocked out an old Anthony Smith. The Dustin Jacoby one was actually pretty decent. So the question becomes, in a pretty weak weight class at light heavyweight, what's the next matchup for Dominic Reyes? And if I'm looking at the rankings, you're not going to go Yair just yet.
Why
Carlos
not?
Goldberg,
Why not? Why are we not
just
going
stay
Yuri?
through it. All right.
Yeah, screw it. Look, the weight class is weak. You said it. Like, we can't pussyfoot around. Like, Dominic Reyes, I think, is back. Confidence for him is the number one thing. I think if he believes in himself, he starts to believe in his chin, and he's going to grow from here. He's going to start fighting a little bit more confidently. I think he's going to have success. And Yuri, let's be honest, is not the same fighter he was when they first fought. So I'm sure Dom would like to get that fight back. That puts him right into the mix of getting a title shot. The fight honestly, another one that kind of is there is you can have him fight John Mahal, or you can have him fight Alex Pereira. The Alex fight,
yeah.
Alex fight is the reason why I say the Alex fight is kind of interesting to me is because will Dom wrestle or will he stand? If he wrestles, I think he can win that fight. If he doesn't wrestle and he stands, he gets knocked the fuck out. You know what I mean? But it's in there. Like, Reyes is the faster fighter on the feet, and Alex is very hittable, and so it does make like Dominic Reyes has got power. He's got power, as you've seen. He's 6'8", 6'7", something like that. He's a big guy.
He's big for the weight class for sure.
Yeah. So, and this is the weakest weight class in the sport right now. Absolutely. Like, normally it's 185, but guess what? 205 is taking the cake. And right now it's like you got Ankh is there. Ankh is a fantastic champion, great fighter. Alex is a great fighter as well, very entertaining for us, but obviously lacks the wrestling, but he also is very entertaining in terms of his knockout power. He fights so well on the feet that it makes people hesitant to shoot on him. Carlos Olberg is dangerous, I think, for Reyes until he gets a couple more fights to make those adjustments. I get concerned about Reyes' chin a little bit. He's been like those 3 knockout losses. I wouldn't mind seeing the Jan Blachowicz fight again. Let's go ahead and run that one too. But I would jump him right to Yuri, because Yuri to me is somebody that he's not the same guy when they fought the first time. Where it was like, oh, we already beat him. I don't give a shit. It's a weak weight class. Run it back, have him go again, and see what happens. Yuri's wild and he's all over the place, and Dom had moments in that fight too. It wasn't like everyone's like, oh,
he had him rocked early.
Yuri kicked his ass. No. Yuri was in trouble in that fight. So why would you not? And like I said, one's kind of going on the rise, and the other one's not on the rise. Roles are reversed right now. So That's something to take a look at.
Yeah, I would say I like either Yair or Jan Blachowicz. You do a fight night main event, or you could do it. That could either one of those could be on a pay per view main card. I think those are probably the two best matchups. I don't really want to see him versus Alexander Rakic just yet. He obviously just beat Nikita Krylov, Volkanovski, Johnny Walker. I mean,
No,
Johnny Walker should just go to heavyweight. Maybe I don't know what Johnny
he
Walker
needs to
does
stay
with no
away
chin.
from Roundtree, and he needs to stay away from Olberg. Just those two guys right now, I'd keep them away from. The power they possess, the ability to land big shots. I would keep them away from him for right now.
Yeah, and Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree, that was supposed to be in 2 weeks. That got moved, so that is still booked. So they should be good. So it really, Yair and Jan make both sense. He can get either one of those back, or he loses again, obviously, but he can get either one of those back. And the Yair one is probably the best possible one, because if he loses to Jan Blachowicz, that actually sucks for the UFC. Jan's old.
Yeah.
He's not getting towards the title anytime soon. And Dominic Reyes, at least they can start to build back up and just continue to remind us he almost beat John Jones 4 years ago.
Yeah.
The Yair
fight.
Many
thought he won. Many thought he won that fight.
Yeah. The Yair fight is probably the best possible one, because if Yair wins, great. Who cares? They love Yair's they want Yair to win, right?
Yeah.
Let's give him more matchups. He's marketable. He's a great looking guy. He's wild. If he wins, great. If he loses, okay.
Guy? Is he a great looking guy?
I think he's a good looking dude for sure. You don't think so?
Yeah, you're definitely not gay.
Dude, he's a great looking dude. Great looking dude.
Jeez.
He was the one telling those wild stories with dudes in his hotel rooms. And then he was like, that was a translation issue, just so everybody knows.
Man bun, yeah. Yeah, I think the Yair fight is the one to make. The history and the way to sell it is he's already beaten Reyes. On top of that, if Reyes does win, he went back and got it back from him. I mean, there's ways that the UFC can. Either way, they're in the win-win if whoever wins that fight.
Yeah.
So it works for them.
And then you got Volk and Ozdemir. I mean, Volkan has a bunch of options, whether you just give him Johnny Walker, you give him Alonzo Menafield, honestly. Give him Alonzo Menafield or Bogdan Guskov. Let's find out how good Bogdan Guskov is or is not. Throw him into one of those matchups. Nikita is a pretty well-rounded guy.
Who are we talking about?
Yeah, I meant to say Nikita Krylov. Give Nikita Krylov any one of those guys under him. He's a pretty well-rounded dude. He hadn't fought in 2 years. I thought, he had Dominic Reyes in a tiny bit of trouble for a second there. And then obviously he literally ran into a straight right. So things didn't go quite his way. But, Nikita's a guy, he's never going to be wildly famous. He'll never get to a title, but he's always a pretty good fighter, and his fights are somewhat entertaining. So give him somebody below him that you're just trying to figure out how good they are or are not and see what happens from there.
Yeah, I guess, let me see this. Hold on real quick. Have they already fought?
Remember before in text when you were bragging about how good you are with computers and how I'm sitting here for a minute and a half while you try to find the website?
This guy. I would give him probably Rakic, because this is the way the UFC normally does it. Two guys coming off losses, they want to match them up so one of them ends up with a win. So what they'll try and do normally is they'll match two guys up who are coming off losses. So at least one of them comes away with the win. We can start building that person back up, and the other person just drops down more, and they'll match that guy up again with another person who's coming off a loss and see what happens. The good shits will fucking rise and the shitty shits will, plunk it. That's kind of how it goes. But they've got to find ways to build stars, and this is where they're running into this weight class. It's very difficult because the weight class stinks right now. Nothing against the guys at the top, but
it stinks, and somebody hasn't taken advantage of that. I guess Ankalaev has kind of taken advantage of that, but it stinks, and it's not like somebody's running through it. They're just kind of all beating each other, and it's kind of a mishmash of, everybody's good, nobody's unbelievable. But those are our matchups from the fallout from UFC 314. Let us know below which matchups you like, which ones you don't, and what's next for some of these guys coming out of what was a very exciting pay-per-view card. We're early in the year, so every single person on that main card can get another fight before this year is up. Let us know who you want them to fight next, and that is another Bad Take.